It's a treat for me to spend some time with two people I know and like a lot, because they're in the business of taking all the good things we've heard about today and actioning them in a business setting. And I'll betray a prejudice, which is when big-time corporate America, big-time corporate Western Hemisphere gets behind something, I think, especially social things happen. And we'll hear from our friend Seth Godin later, but when he spoke with us last year, he finished up with a point about it takes a movement. Movements have to develop before things get institutionalized. And the one I use in my own life is that because I've been around a long time, when I first started to drive a car, we didn't put seatbelts on. And then I had kids, and the kids insisted that I wear seatbelts, and now we all wear them automatically, which makes all the sense in the world. So you're creating a movement in corporate world, and yours is a global corporate company, Wendy. You're the senior vice president of marketing, communications, and sustainability. And Christina Pearson is a partner in Penta, a global communications firm, and they're doing some amazing work. And the point is, if a tree falls in a forest, if it's not good enough just to do the work, but being conscious of all the constituent audiences that you have running the communications and marketing at a big global company. What are the constituent audiences you have? But let's start with what you're doing and how it impacts them. So give us an idea of how long you've been at the sustainability business, Wendy, and what does it look like now in a company like IGT, which runs lotteries around the world, the technology provider for lotteries, and also manufactures gaming machines for licensed casinos. So what does the program look like inside IGT?
Thank you so much for having us here, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with the audience and other content speakers today. At IGT, we've actually been published, and so that our sustainability program really started with responsible gaming, and it's really extended from not only responsible gaming, but inclusion in our communities. Many of our customers, our lottery customers particularly, their returns go to good causes in the states that they operate. So community is important, responsible gaming is important, and then on the people side of our organization, DEI continues to be an important opportunity for continued growth. You've been a great supporter of that in our organization too. When it comes to climate, this is an area where we've recently made our commitments to SBTI targets. We recently got them approved just last month. So I actually really enjoyed the conversation that we had earlier with Amanda from Target, talking about setting out those goals and then really unleashing the organization to help inspire the teams to develop the programs and help us build out that decarbonization pathway. In our organization, we have a great sustainability team. But they can't do it all. We need, to your point, it takes a movement, it takes a village, it takes everybody in our organization to realize that part of their responsibility is to help in all of these aspects of sustainability, including climate change, and especially when it comes to our supply chain. So it really is about engaging our employees, and that's the key audience that we think about when it comes to communications on sustainability at IGT.
Christina, when we were backstage doing those tequila shots.
I thought you wouldn't tell them about that.
You were talking about the fact that it's ironic that if you have a chief sustainability officer, their job is almost to work themselves out of a job and not have a chief sustainability officer. Talk to me about how you think about your clients and where they are in the roadmap. Wendy's 16 years into this journey, others newer to it. How do they think about the different constituent audiences that they have?
It is an interesting point, which is that 16 years ago it was ahead of the curve what you were doing, and now what we are finding is that's the expectation for every company. Every company is hearing from their stakeholders what is important is to communicate on these goals. And so the Chief Sustainability Officer used to be a silo within a company, and the movement we've really seen has been integrated into all aspects of the company. That is, investors have often historically have been an audience, policymakers, as we're seeing with some of the regulations that are coming down in Europe, and legislation in California that was mentioned before. They're also an audience that's asking a lot of questions. You also have the ratings organizations, that there's an expectation that you're participating in them, but there's different guidance. You also have your own customers. One thing that we were talking about a lot, they really are a feedback loop that is wanting to express to you their desires about making making your materials more sustainable and making them more affordable as well and accessible, which is also key. It can't just be sustainable. It has to be something that you can make a business case as well. And then finally, you have your employees who, that's really been a really interesting shift, especially over the last couple of years. I think
The shift from what?
Well, from before, I think that it's become, more companies are seeing this as a brand value that is both for internal stakeholders and external stakeholders incredibly important, and that there is an expectation that you are going to set clear science-based goals, that you are going to report on them, not just once a year, but regularly on an ongoing basis. And I also think that there is the idea that customers and employees and others want to be giving you feedback on that and working with you on that. One thing that's interesting around that, we were talking about some of the best ideas are actually coming from other parts of the company, other employees, that when they're hearing at a quarterly town hall to report on what your progress has been, they're standing up and coming up with ideas. They're bringing forward other ideas. And so this chief sustainability officer used to be one that was perhaps the central point within a company, and now, because other parts of the company are feeding it up to them, are getting it up to them, and they are actually, going to your point about Seth, they're creating internal movements. It's no longer just an external movement. You also hear it a lot internally from your employees, and that's why, frankly, at Penta, we're spending a lot of time. We are a data-driven firm, and we have historically looked a lot at scraping data. What is the public discourse? News monitoring. What are people saying? Who are your stakeholders? What are they saying about you? What words are they using? What insights can you gain?
And you quantify that?
And you quantify it. The interesting thing, though, is that increasingly in that type of business, you're also finding that used to be very retrospective. Now we're really putting an emphasis, and clients really want to get things that are prospective. What can we learn about that going forward? Can we use AI to create make a prognosis for the future? What are the possible paths going to the types of products that customers are going to ask for, the type of movements that maybe happen in a community that is really important to your business?
Yep.
So we're finding that a lot of those tools that we used to benchmark progress that were retrospective, there's a real desire to make those more prospective using AI and other things.
Wendy, how do you measure that internally? I always say in our company, when you have an important subject and you're having dinner at home and you're a team member of ours, when your 14-year-old daughter asks you about what your company's doing in a way of packaging or other activities that roll into sustainability, that's when the message is happening. Because so it's important, I think, from a retention and from a recruitment point of view. How do you determine how important that is, and how do you measure that?
Yeah, well, through our employee engagement survey studies that we do every 2 years, we get a good sense from that how important sustainability is. We have a responsible gaming survey, an education training program that also is a way for us to get feedback. We're also in the process of doing an updated communication to our customers around a survey around their understanding of what they're looking for from us on sustainability. I think in terms of measurement, it is sometimes that the softer side of measurement of employee engagement. So we started this program. In fact, you challenged us, as my colleagues here in the audience, and one of our meetings to. You mentioned we're doing a great job of the programs that we have in place. How do we communicate it? So we created a sustainable play program. That was the branding we used. We're in the business of playing games, lottery and games. And so we coined the term sustainable play to help try and explain to our employees really what sustainability means, because sometimes it's not clear, people don't understand, so we wanted to be able to have a short form for that.
And you've also gamified it with the Champions program.
That's right. That's where I was going next. You're right. So yeah, we created this Sustainability Champions program, and actually it's been a roaring success. We were giving out the awards every quarter, and I think last quarter we gave out 8 or 10 of these awards, and it's an employee-nominated program where we're asking and encouraging employees to nominate some of their colleagues for recognition in terms of what they've been doing in each of the pillars of our sustainability program: people, community, responsibility, and the environment. And it really is a storytelling, and communications, we were saying this earlier, is really about storytelling. It's a storytelling of what those employees have done in the organization, and we hope that this will help not only educate people in our organization about what sustainability is, but inspire them and encourage them to participate. And that's how we think we can sort of decentralize or de-silo, as we were saying earlier, sustainability, so that it's something that everybody in the organization feels that they can participate in, and then it makes them feel good, so that at the dinner table at home they can talk about,
here's my award.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think we're at a really interesting time in the sustainability movement, because, and I do think we need to continue to communicate, to tell those stories, and because that's what builds the community. To have forums like this for information sharing, so we all feel like we're in this together and not working in our own silos or our own corporations without the broader perspective.
Christine, how do you work with your clients to do what Wendy is doing in terms of badging and creating an atmosphere where it becomes a grounds-up kind of movement where people are encouraged behaviorally to really jump on board? How do you work with your clients to develop those programs?
Well, I think that, again, a lot of it comes from understanding what and setting your goals and making sure that they're authentic to the company. That is working hand in hand with the CSO and the Chief Communications Officer, the CEO.
Are these sustainability goals a part of the compensation package in most of the companies that you work with?
Some are,
yeah,
and some are considering it. I think that, but what's interesting about it is that every company is looking to increasingly find a way to help tell their own story. And a lot of that comes from research. You know, they're going out and focus group testing and talking about, asking internal employees, customers, others, where they can provide the most value. Because not every company is going to have the same value to that process. Mm-hmm. Everyone has something different to give. And it started really as, where could we give a substantial commitment that's actually going to make a difference in our field and be a leader? I think that also comes with, we're spending a lot of time with planning 5-10 years out. You know, if you're trying to reach this goal, you know, what type of research? But
you got to be careful about drifting toward greenwashing. So if you set 15-year goals, it has to translate to what we need to do this year to be able to get there in that 15-year period.
I think so. That's true. You always have to be careful of that. And I guess I would point out 2 things, is that we're spending a lot of time in charting out those issues, also talking about who the partners are. And that's what we're spending a lot of time, the various people who are credible actors and other people in your industry, but also the ratings organizations, other companies. There's an expectation of people are working directly together. So there is more of as part of that planning, it's who are the people we want to work with, and then how do we tell that story to our employees, to our customers, and give them specific actions that make it tangible and tactile. Yep. The other thing I would say that we haven't quite touched on, but I think it goes back to your point about greenwashing, is that companies are most successful when they are talking about something that is authentic to them and that is a goal that they're working on, but they are also consistent and transparent about it, I believe. And talking,
you got to be able to fake that authenticity.
Well, luckily you can't. But I think that it's very important, though, for a lot of companies go out there and also talking about what was hard. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really interesting communications opportunity for a lot of companies and us. And what that's internal or external. Unlike any other issue I've worked on in my career, this is one where I really think that companies have been, and partners and customers have been really good about what are the various roadblocks and barriers along the way. That a global company that is a food company sees itself as being really important to the farming operations in Illinois that's growing their corn or wheat, and they see themselves as listening to those farmers. They're actually, a lot of companies are actually going out and talking to those, suppliers way down the chain and hearing about, well, if you want to institute renewable ag, what are the roadblocks to it? They're making a business case.
Yep.
And they're explaining that. And so I think that's important. But I would also say that the one other thing I would touch on is that you also have to be, as a communicator, also ready for the questions that you don't want to answer. And I think that that's also in talking about the journey and where the successes and where the barriers are and where you can work together. I think a lot of companies that are being very smart right now are also talking about the questions they may get that they may not have answers to.
That's part of being authentic, though.
Is being authentic,
You have to
yes.
say that.
Yeah.
And I think that they know they have to have a point of view and trying to work it through and not waiting and saying that's another company's problem. I think companies are increasingly, to make it perhaps a little easy, almost like an escalation plan. If we get a question like this in an employee town hall, it's no longer just a one-off question. You actually go back with your chief sustainability officer and the chief communications officer. If you don't know the answer, you go and try to find it. And it's become a real, that's been an interesting twist on this issue as well, is the preparedness also for the questions, not just for what you want to drive and understanding your audiences. There's also a very robust feedback loop that is leading to better preparation because we don't have all the answers. And I think that is the most credible companies are also talking about what they do know and what they don't know and helping to find the answers where they can.
Wendy, you have all of those responsibilities, the communications piece, the marketing piece, and the sustainability. Everyone here can give you an idea of one more thing you could do that would be beneficial. How do you manage not overdoing it, that you're cost effective in your efforts? Because there's no end to other suggestions or demands of what you could do. At Penta, how do you work with your clients? And Wendy, how do you as a client think about, I got to make sure this is practical. I have to do the things that matter.
Well, I think it is all about prioritizing because you're right, you could boil the ocean, and especially when it comes to the environment and climate in terms of what you can do. And I think in our organization, we have to remain grounded in, I think you mentioned this, who we are and what we do, what we contribute, and really is around gaming and that regulated gaming. So job number one is to ensure that as part of our sustainability program, we're focused on responsible gaming. But then, of course, the other aspects and the other pillars of it are critically and becoming more important. And when it comes to climate, so it's focusing on, first of all, what are our commitments? Where is that pathway that we can take? And listening to our customers, we talked about this too, in terms of understanding what's important to us, which is why we decided to go back to our lottery customers particularly and better understand what's important to them when it comes to sustainability, so that we can use that as a priority for or a guidepost for making our priorities.
It's a space that you could easily overdo. But I like what you're talking about, Christina, at Penta in terms of being data-based, data-driven first, understanding your different constituent audiences, your vendors, the farm that food originates on, but then orchestrate that communication plan lets every stakeholder know where you are, what your priorities are.
Well, and I would say a really interesting thing also about the communications age that we're in is that a lot of the research tools, because of digital and AI and other things, are much more affordable for smaller and mid-sized companies than they ever were. I mean, that is the really interesting thing about the analytics that we are able to gather from website usage and from comments in public. And those things used to be something that only a Fortune 100 company could actually afford to invest in. It's interesting because of the volume of data out there in the public sphere, or the ability to do research online in digital focus groups and other things, it's become a lot more accessible and affordable for a company that is at the beginning of their journey to afford to do it. And I really will say communications is like so much that we've talked about today. You have to benchmark it, and you have to know where you started in order to know where you're going to go. And I think that is really kind of an interesting thing right now, frankly, as a communications opportunity for everyone is that a lot of those are within grasp, no matter what your size is or where your location is now.
Well, I know firsthand, Wendy, that what you guys doing are terrific. You're really advancing the cause on so many fronts. And Christina, from Penta, working with you and so many of your clients on getting that message out and benchmarking it and watching the progress. That which is measured improved, and if you don't measure it, it doesn't improve. So
exactly.
Thanks so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.